So Grant Lee-Males, thank you very much for your time today. Really
Pleasure.
appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Very interested to hear about how you're going in this role. I mean, you previously were serving as a state CIO, and you've come into Victoria to very much apply the skills that you learned there to the situation here and to try and get Victoria working very efficiently and well. Tell us about how that's been going since you've come on board.
Since I come on board in Victoria, we have now a context for IT investment in the state. A number of years ago, we have had things like Auditor General report, Ombudsman's reports about some of the challenges that the state has faced. In my time, the state has developed an ICT strategy under Minister Rich Phillips that has been a good guiding principle, a set of guiding principles for the state and the way it manages its ICT estate.
And how has that been applied, I guess, to the environment that you're working in? Obviously, the Minister's been very involved in trying to reform and build some foundations for IT in the state. What does that mean in terms of deliverables and in terms of actionable advice?
Well, the ICT strategy has allowed us to step back from day-to-day IT and focus on the things that are more important to our citizens and the people that work in the public sector. So the ICT strategy is not so much about the technology, but the way that the technology is applied to two principal things. First, the way we deliver services to our customers. Their needs are changing dramatically in response to the general technology trends, and we need to serve them in a way that they expect to be served. Also, we are in an environment where we need to be more productive as a public sector, and the ICT strategy is helping us with those things. We're now focusing on the way that public servants work and work more efficiently and effectively.
And what are you finding? Is there a lot of room for improvement across Victoria? Is it an issue of cutting down the expenditures and trying to just streamline a bit, as you naturally do over time?
Well, there's always room for improvement, and those improvements are twofold. First, the technology is changing, and technology is simply the tools we can apply to the things that we need to do. Focus better on our customers, have a more productive workforce. But the tools also help us do the things you described, become more cost effective in just delivering the services itself.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's never easy to be a state CIO. Certainly in Australia, it's been a role that has a bit of a checkered history. How have you found, obviously in Victoria, the support for being effectively a state CIO? I know your title's a little bit different, but having this central role. And why do you think it's been so hard to really have that role continuing in other places?
The role of the central CIO is very difficult. Often they are set up in the centre of a central part of government or stand alone. The challenge with the role is that it often comes with only the need to influence or the ability to influence and very little money. In other, say in the private sector, an enterprise-wide CIO will have some control over strategy, direction, and certainly control over budget. The role of the state CIO is to influence the development of the ICT strategy and not to fund it. The funding for ICT is quite rightly held in agencies. So the role of the central government CIO is to influence the agenda, and we've done that by creating, together with all of the CIOs, a state ICT strategy. But we now are in the position where we're beginning to implement those through the CIOs. With respect to other whole-of-government CIOs, the reasons that they might have had shorter tenure than others is complex and probably for them to determine or describe.
Sure. It is an interesting one, though, because it's been a lot of approaches to try to get this sort of far-reaching role that's able to set the strategy and things. How much flexibility have you had in this role since you've come in to kind of shake things up and set an action plan for the state?
We have incredible flexibility, but in a very strictly controlled environment. I think the success of our ICT strategy is the fact that we have very strict processes around governance. The Minister for Technology, who's the principal leader of technology in the state, has an advisory council, VicTAC, or the Victorian ICT Advisory Council. VicTAC is comprised of a number of government CIOs and non-government CIOs. And I think that's been the power of getting the strategy to a point where it's probably one of the best in state governments in Australia. It's the combination of government and non-government expertise. There's a bridge between VicTac and the CIO Council, which is the council of all CIOs in government. So that strict line of Minister, VicTac and the CIOs is the rigid framework that we make decisions in. But that framework is informed by the secretaries of departments, deputy secretaries, a number of other stakeholders. We get cues from service delivery agencies. So we have tremendous flexibility in what we take through that very rigid process. And we've been very successful, I think, in creating the context now for IT investment in Victoria.
Certainly the strategic plan for the state came out, and I think you're aiming for the end of this year for quite a number of deliverables. That sounds like that's going very well. How do you think that you've been able to make that happen as effectively and efficiently as it has?
The success of our IT strategy really goes back to the way it was created, and that was with VicTac, this ICT Advisory Council. The strategy is not so much about the nuts and bolts of IT, it is about service delivery and productivity. Those things resonate with the people that need to make the investment decisions, the CIOs themselves and their seniors in government. So the success is really that we have been able to gather together the things that are important to the enterprise and deliver them using IT as the enabler. It's not secret, it's not magic, it is that we have been able to harness a number of influences to get to the end point we've got to.
Mm-hmm. I think the number was 50, wasn't it, deliverables?
We have 50 deliverables. I think 34 of them were delivered by the end of December last year, and we're well on our way to have all 50 delivered by December this year. But the IT strategy, in fact, because IT is such a dynamic industry and government is still fairly dynamic, we have set ourselves the task of refreshing the IT strategy each year. We have just finished the process of consulting with industry on the next refresh, and we expect the Minister for Technology will be launching that fairly shortly. And that adds another 15 deliverables to the 50 that we have in place. And those deliverables start almost immediately and then go through to the end of next year.
So it's really a moving feast as you build on existing programs and build on new successes. You're able to then look forward even more so.
Yeah, correct. As I said, technology is a rapidly changing industry, and government is still very dynamic. We still need to respond to the economic environment. We need to respond to the needs of our citizens.
Now, one of the things that's in your remit is the review of Cenetex and what's been happening with that. Obviously, trying to figure out how you wrap that into your ongoing strategy and your long-term vision. Where are you in that, and how do you go about that kind of review when you come into a role like this? It's certainly not an easy thing, I imagine.
I think there are a couple of things I want to say to that. First is that we need to recognise where we are, and that is a little bit about recognising our past. But the ICT strategy really does look to the future. Cenetex is an important aspect of ICT in the state of Victoria, and there are some reviews being undertaken at the moment. But the interesting thing for us is to get to the goal of better service delivery and to have a more productive public service.
Certainly. Now, like any state government, Victoria has quite a broad range of departments and operations, and obviously quite a lot of local IT executives go along with that. You have a sort of an overreaching role, and you can, I imagine, liaise with them in very, very many different ways. How have you found the process of forming relationships with them and getting everybody to kind of read from the same playbook and work together for a better outcome across that? Obviously, there's a lot of relationship building going on.
Indeed. The relationships with the CIOs are very important in the scheme of things. The thing that has helped us tremendously in building relationships with CIOs is the IT strategy. It is the thing that gives us context. It's the thing that binds us. So the ability to go to CIO Council, where it's the principal governance body of IT in Victoria, we have the context of the ICT strategy, and we have the common goals. As I said, I don't want to harp on it, but our common goals of the customer and productivity of the service, public service, are the things that bind us. When we talk about these things to the CIOs, really all we ask them to do is to have in mind their own specific needs. Agencies do have very specific needs, but we want to for them to understand their specific needs in the context of the enterprise of the Victorian government. And when you scratch the surface, although there are some differences, we are more alike than we probably think we are.
It's always a tough lesson to learn, isn't it?
Indeed. It's probably one of the things we learnt in South Australia.